Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Sunset Drive at WildEarth. To our regular viewers, welcome back, and to new viewers, welcome. Big welcome from the whole team at WildEarth. Just a reminder that what you're seeing is live, and everything you're seeing is in real time. So if you have any questions or want to contact us, feel free to send your email questions to questions@wildearth.tv or on Twitter, #SafariLive. My name is Jamie, and on camera today we have Andrew, and in the control room, Tara. I'm afraid to say that Wendy is still down. She's having a really bad week, but Eugene's working on the problem, and hopefully we can get her back up and running. Just a quick introduction to myself. I'm new in this job. This is my first time, and this is actually my trial drive. I'm hoping to join the team here at WildEarth. So please bear with me. I don't know this reserve, I don't know the animals, and I know that some of the regular viewers have a much better grasp and handle on the animals that we're going to be seeing. I'm going to be getting a little bit of help every now and again from Andrew, just because I don't really know the roads here at all, or where I'm allowed to go and where I'm not. As you can see at the moment, we actually have a wonderful view for the first time today of the newest lion cubs, the newest addition to the Stxy pride. Okay, we've got a wonderful view here of the cubs. Just so that you guys know, the reason that we don't want to get any closer is because these guys are actually very new. We're guessing somewhere in the region of 3 months old. And one of the important things about guiding is that if you push too hard, it's not ethical for a start because we're in their home, but also you're going to make the animals skittish and wary of cars. So when cubs are this young, we're going to give them a little bit of space, a little bit of distance, but we've still got a nice view of them playing, learning and gathering their coordination. Very contented family. Earlier this morning, we actually had our first view of them coming up from the dam, and I know a lot of viewers were very excited to see them. We also had the two big Matimba males, the ginger male and hairy belly, but they seem to have made their way off, or they've moved somewhere deeper into the bush to find some shade. These guys have spent a relaxing day just hanging out here in the bush. Very cute. Alright, so with lion cubs like this is actually sort of getting towards the time where they're going to start coming out with their mothers more and more often. Any younger than this, and they'll actually be hidden away in den sites, which can be anything from rocky outcrops to thick bushes, and the mother actually keeps them there for a while. It's safer for them while they're still too small to keep up with them while they're hunting. So she'll return to the den site every now and again, give them some food, and then move on and hunt some more with the rest of the pride. You won't be able to see them very clearly, but in a second I'll reposition so that you'll be able to see the proud mom and proud auntie, who are flat cat just around the corner. They're just hiding just behind those bushes. If you're lucky, you might see an ear flick. There's actually 3 of these cubs. I can only see 2 at the moment. I think the third might have moved around or in the shade. It's very nice to finally see them on Juma. Now, this is a very, very risky period in a young lion's life. They're not always with their mom, and there's a lot of threats out there. The hyena den is not that far from our position at the moment, and any hyena that comes across them, or leopard, or cheetah, any predator that comes and finds them without their mother, there's a very good chance that they could be killed. And that's just purely due to competition. The other predators get rid of them as a way of ensuring the success of their own youngsters and their own offspring. I've also heard of cases of buffalo when they find undertended lion cubs. They also might stomp on them. So mortality rate is very high, but hopefully mommy's going to be a good mom, choose nice hiding places. Oh, cute. Look at the little cub. Got its siblings' ears. Ah, there's 3. Here's the other one. Okay. All right, bear with me for a few seconds. I'm just going to try and get us out of the bush. We're in quite thick bush at the moment. I'm going to try and get out with a minimal amount of disturbance for the lions and see if we can reposition a little bit, just to get a different view. Okay, guys. Relaxed again after the engine started, so we'll just try and get ourselves out of here. Might have to do a 20-point turn here. Any damage that we're doing to the environment. Just to let you know, we always choose trees that we know will be able to spring back. They're young saplings, they will grow back after, they won't be permanently damaged, so you don't need to worry too much about the impact that the car is having on the environment. So the 2 females are just ahead of us, just over here. I'm going to try and see if we can get in a little closer, get a good view. Sorry, my girls. Okay, just going to wait for them to relax a little bit. Just 1 second. Okay, sorry girl. There you go. She's going to move herself to a nice patch of shade. right at the back there, you can see the 3 cubs. Okay, so we have a question from Gada on Twitter, and we'd like to know, do we know whether these are male or female cubs yet? The answer in short is not really. It's a little bit soon to tell. We need to wait a little bit for their development, and then we'll be able to see a little bit more easily. We haven't had a good chance to look yet. In a couple of months' time, the young males will start to show signs. They get a little bit fluffy around the head and the neck, and then we can start to see. But for now, we don't know any of the 3 sexes yet. Very cute. Julia from Houston, welcome to the Sunset Safari. Julia wants to know whether or not the lions have made a kill recently or any time around. I know that there was talk about some of the zoomies hearing stuff on the waterhole cams, hearing sounds, what sounded like lions killing a buffalo. As far as we know, not that we've seen, the lions don't look very hungry, but they don't look full. They don't look like they've just eaten. So possibly not a successful kill. Maybe tonight, later, when it gets a bit cooler, they'll be more active and they'll give it a go. And thank you for the warm words of welcome. Gilly from Milwaukee, Wisconsin would like to know if the mother and the aunt are nearby. Welcome, Gilly. Yes, these 2 will definitely be mom and aunt, respectively. I haven't been able to have a look at the nipple area to look for feeding signs, so I'm not sure which one of these 2 females is the mother and which one is the aunt. Now with lions, what they will do is if 2 related females have litters at the same time, they can actually both suckle the offspring of the other one. It's known as allosuckling. Unfortunately, the one female hasn't had a litter at the same time, so there'll only be one food source for these 3. But I'm not sure which one of these is the mother at the moment. If they roll over or choose to move, then we might get a better idea. We just need to see which one is lactating. So Donna in South Carolina, welcome to the Sunset Drive. You've asked if the 2 Stxy ladies are related, the 2 adult females. Donna, yes, they would be. It's very, very unusual to find unrelated females sort of moving together and working together in a pride. Typically, they will be sisters, or at least in some way closely related. All right, and that's nature's way of propagating the genes that they have. They look after each other, and they look after each other's cubs, and they provide for each other's cubs, and in that way, their own genetic line is actually being passed on. So as far as I know, I'm not familiar with the animals, but most likely they will be related. It's always interesting to look at genetics and how the way that animals function, especially predators. You know, solitary animals such as leopards, you'll find that the female will mate with several males just so that they don't know which one the father is, and they can move through the territories without risk of one of the males killing their cubs, because the male might think that it's their own offspring. And what you'll find when you see male coalition of lions, so often they'll move together in groups. 2 is always better than 1. 5 is even better, because you stand a much better chance of competing with opposing males. But what you'll see with lions is that they all get a chance, well, there's a good chance they'll have an opportunity to mate with an available female. So you'll find with male coalitions, they don't tend to be as strict in terms of relations. I know of coalitions with cousins and even unrelated males forming coalitions. What's very common in small reserves is because the lions can't move and breed in the way, look for new breeding opportunities, they actually the management actually has to control which lions are where. So if you've got an older male who's going to reach sexual maturity and be ready to breed, you might need to move that male to a different reserve and swap him out where he'd have different and fresh genetic mating opportunities. So what I've seen done in my experience is when they've decided to move a new male into a different area, they've actually darted one male and then put the new male with that male and rubbed a scent cloth over each lion's face and then onto the other one, just so that they get the scent. So when they wake up in an unfamiliar place with each other, they actually form quite a unique coalition, even though they're not related. In contrast, if you look at something like male cheetahs, if they form a coalition, again, always to their advantage, it means a better chance of having a successful hunt, better chance of defending your territory from marauding males. In cheetah coalitions, generally there is one who is slightly more dominant, and he will be the one that has a chance to mate. And for that reason, cheetah males tend to be a little bit more picky about their coalition mates. So they will choose somebody, they will stay in a coalition with somebody who is their brother, or at the furthest stretch, maybe a cousin, because then even if they're not getting that opportunity to mate, their genetic line is still being passed on through their relative. Of course, that's just a general rule. There are no rules when it comes to wild animals. They don't read the textbooks. They don't know that we put these rules upon them, so there will always be exceptions to that. But that in itself is one of the most wonderful things about working out in an area like this and getting a chance to sit and observe these guys as we are completely alone and undisturbed, because then you actually get a chance to observe behavior that you won't ever read about in books. So now I have a question for you guys. Would you like to stay with this family for a little bit longer? It's still quite warm out here. It's around, I think, 22 degrees centigrade, which is around 72 Fahrenheit. So they're going to stay here for a little bit longer out in the sun, and then probably only get active a little bit later when it starts getting dark. So they're going to stay much like this. It is very thick in here, so we haven't got the best view. So let me know on #SafariLive or questions@wildearth.tv if you'd like to stay with him a little bit longer, or if you'd like to move and look for something else. All right, what we can also do is that we can come back. But if we do come back, we have to make sure that we're back here before dark. And the reason for that is just ethical guiding procedures. We don't really want to put a spotlight on these cubs, not at this age. They're still a little bit too young to be harassed in that kind of way, so we won't be putting a spotlight on them. We can come back, and we can check and see later if they move towards a dam. Ooh, bit of a sneeze. Oh, I've got a wonderful shot of a cub just behind that branch, unfortunately, but just having a little bit of a nibble at the branch. Now, this kind of behavior is very common in all small animals. They're investigating, they're learning about their world, and the best way to do that sometimes is just to put it in your mouth and give it a good taste and a good chew. I'm sure some of you with cats and dogs and kittens and puppies at home, you've seen your pet do this as well. Just getting an idea of how everything works and fits into this new world, with your senses starting to sharpen. Cecilia, welcome to the Sunset Drive, and thank you for your question. Cecilia wants to know how often the mother will move the cubs around from den sites. That's very much dependent on the circumstances. If she is disrupted in any way, I've seen lionesses move new cubs because an elephant herd came through and she decided she just wasn't comfortable. So if something comes along and disturbs them, if she decides that it's too close to another animal's territory, or somebody's coming through too often on a game path that's a bit too popular, then she might decide to move them. And the other thing that she will sometimes do is to move them fairly regularly, just so that the scent and the parasites doesn't build up around the den site. So I can't give you an exact answer, Cecilia. I'd say anywhere from a couple of days to maybe a week or two. What I've also found is that when lionesses move their cubs, very often they don't go very far, because bear in mind they have to be carried one at a time to the new area. So she doesn't tend to go too far, just a little bit further away from wherever she thinks there might be a threat. Still giving it a good chew. Okay, guys, I understand that most of you would actually like to stay and see the cubs for a little bit longer. I know that this is very exciting, especially for regular viewers who've known of the existence of these cubs, but perhaps only seeing them for the first time now. Just bear in mind that I can't necessarily push much further forward without disturbing this family. So the view that you might have might be a bit obstructed by bushes and trees. I'm just not willing to push any closer. I don't want to disrupt these guys, not at this stage. Ashley from the UK, welcome and thank you very much for your question. Ashley would like to know if the cub is chewing on the branch because it's teething, and she wants to know if cubs have milk teeth in the same way that humans have milk teeth that fall out. The answer is yes, they do. They'll start getting their adult sets of teeth sort of towards around, as far as I know, 6 months that they start seeing that. So potentially might be teething, but I think, in my opinion, unlikely at this point. Probably just chewing because he's exploring, or he or she is exploring new avenues and new options, and just wants to know what it tastes like and what it feels like and how solid it is. It's also a very important mechanism for strengthening those jaw muscles. All right, the lions are going to rely very heavily on the powerful, powerful jaw and strong, strong paws. And they have to actually work up to get those muscles nice and strong for when they're big and hunting for themselves. We've actually been fortunate enough, where I've been working in the last few years, we acquired a lion skull. The lion died naturally. He was killed by other males. And we had a look at his skull. And it's incredible to see the grooves and ridges on the skull itself. And that's purely for muscle attachment, okay? It's incredibly powerful muscles that are joining the jaw and controlling the jaw. So you see that all along, and you'll see the very powerful shoulders and neck of the lion, all connected to the muscle attachment points, so that they've got that real bite force that they're going to need to kill something. What you'll also see, what I've noticed, is they're very large holes in the skull, and those are actually pathways for nerves, all right, because they need to have a lot of sensitivity in terms of their whiskers sensing, feeling their way around, and they're very reliant on those areas. So there's a lot of sensory and motor coordination running backwards and forwards between the face and the brain. Very interesting to see, and very interesting to compare with other predator skulls that have slightly different methods of hunting. Okay, so we've still got a bit of cub acrobatics going on there. A couple of pull-ups. This is still more entertaining than the brothers and sisters who aren't being much fun at the moment. So Pamela on Twitter, welcome, and thank you for your question. Pamela would like to know how much lion cubs weigh. In my experience, I've been fortunate enough occasionally to be hands-on with some lion cubs. They are a lot stockier than you expect them to be, especially at this age. When they're born, they're very, very tiny. They need a lot of looking after, so you're looking at probably maybe 100 grams. I'm not entirely sure how to convert that to an imperial system, but yeah, we're looking at, for these guys, probably, I would say, at a guess, maybe about 6 kilograms. No, maybe about 4 kilograms. But that is a guess. I wouldn't have exact numbers. What is amazing to me always is how incredibly rapidly animals like this can grow. Their mother's milk is very, very nutritious, provides a lot of what they need, and they grow incredibly rapidly on it. And that's necessary for their survival. They need to get big and strong as quickly as possible. There we go, he's coming out to say hello. Climbing all over mommy or auntie. Ah, I think we have mommy. Definitely. Oh, no. It's not that keen. Cub's not letting go. Okay, he gave it a good go. Unfortunately, moved right into the bushes there. But yeah, therefore this lioness is definitely mom, and the cub came up. I'm not sure if you guys could pick up on the little sounds that the cub was making. It's actually making tiny little growling sounds, just as a way of begging. It's begging for food, basically. Mommy, feed me, I'm hungry. Let me suckle. All right, she seems to have settled more comfortably. And I think cub has actually got a good position there. Having a nice feed. Okay. I just want to show you guys quickly, if I can, managed to get a picture up of the lion skull, just to show you guys what I was talking about earlier. I'm not sure if that sun is going to get it in, but here we have a nice picture of a lion skull. You can actually, there's a groove all along the top here and a nice ridge, and the muscles attach here, and then you've got very powerful points here, around here, for the muscles to attach to. And then the holes that I was talking about for the nerve channels, that's actually down here, around here. So passing through, leading directly to the brain, there's also a hole here that travels into the orbital socket, so feeding into the eye, but also feeding nerves down to around here, around these areas, the lips, the nose, all of the facial muscles that they need to actually go about their day-to-day business. And what you'll often see with animals is at the top here of their mouths, they have what's known as the organ of Jacobson, or the vomeral nasal organ. And that's, if I could describe it in sort of less scientific terms, it's almost like they can taste what they smell. So what you'll get them doing is what's known as the phlegm and grimace, where they pull their lips up, they make funny faces. You might have seen it if you in an area with cows or horses, you might have seen horses or cows do that. And they pull it up, and that's actually opening up the passages so that they can draw the scent in and place it on that organ, and that will actually transmit the sense up into the brain, and they can interpret it from there. It's something that we as humans no longer have in a functional manner. We've actually compromised or evolution has led to the fact that our sense of smell and hearing is not quite the same, as we're no longer as reliant on it as other animals are. So we no longer have much use for that, and we've given up those senses in the way that they would have been, because we need more space for thinking. We're a little bit more intellectual, but more brain space, less brain occupied by interpreting smells and hearing. Okay, thank you. Okay, second cub's also come and had a look. We actually saw this earlier this morning as well. Often when one cub goes in to feed, the others want to join. Yeah, mommy's rolling. From the brief look that I've had at the lionesses, just at the dark patches on their noses and at the state of their canines, I'd say that these two females are they're not young. This is not their first litter of cubs. So hopefully it gives these three a better chance. They've had some practice, they've had some experience, they know what to avoid and what to look after, what to look out for in terms of caring for their cubs and keeping them safe. So hopefully you guys will be able to follow on and watch the progress as they grow. There you go. Isn't he cute? He or she. Trying to push his way in there. Picture of contentment. All right, guys, I think it's time for us to leave this little family in peace. Let them enjoy a bit of late afternoon serenity. I promise you we will try and come back to them, have a look around, but let's see if they move towards the dam. As I said, if it gets a little bit too late and it gets too dark, then we won't be able to shine on them with a spotlight, but we'll come back later, we'll swing by later, see what's happening on this side. All right. So for now, I think what we're going to do is you're going to come and explore the reserve with me. It's as new to me as it is to some of you, so we'll see where we end up, and hopefully we can find something else interesting to look at and see. And if this knob lets go of me. Nice hooked thorns. You catch onto everything. Here you go, you can have a look. They've managed to grab several pieces of my hair and a piece of my elbow. Thank you, Andrew, for that. Ooh. Sorry, lions. New car. All right. Sorry. Let's make our way out as quietly as possible. I know that you might be struggling to hear me a little bit, especially now crashing through the bush. I promise you I'll try and talk a little bit louder, try and make things a little bit clearer. One of the big Matimba males. Obviously I'm not entirely sure which at the moment, I don't know them terribly well, but he is flat cat, sleeping, also enjoying a nice afternoon rest. Oh, we've got the two here. Okay. Nice and relaxed. So I've been told that Lions of Sabi Sands has a little bit of a correction for me, and thank you very much for that. He said that the lioness in this case is actually close to 4 years old, or just turned 4 years old, and this is in fact her first litter. So I stand corrected, and thank you for that. Hopefully get to know the animals a little bit better. Here we go, fast asleep. Now these guys can actually spend a fair amount of time, close to 20 hours a day, if necessary, sleeping, or at least dozing, catnapping. nice and relaxed. All right, and there's a reason for that. They've got very large bodies. These males can weigh well over 200 kilograms, which is close to, I suppose, about 450 pounds. So they need a lot of energy to keep themselves going. And when they actually do hunt and chase, it takes a lot out of them, even in terms of heat production and overheating, which is often why male lions in particular will rely on the females to hunt. But that doesn't mean that they're incapable of hunting, and often a pride with a couple of big males will be able to take down some of the bigger prey, the buffalo, the giraffe. But typically, what I've often seen happen is the lionesses, especially if they kill something small like an impala, the males will actually come in, eat most of the meal, and the lionesses will just carry on hunting, especially with small meals. But it still works to the lioness's advantage, actually. Oh, nice, rolled over in the sun, passed out. But these guys will be good protection, especially for these females with their young cubs. If a threat comes around, something like a hyena, which might be brave in challenging a lioness, but definitely won't be taking on two male lions. And I've seen it before, actually, where the lionesses had killed a zebra and they were chased by a group of hyena. And I'm not sure exactly where the male was at the time, but he obviously picked up on the sounds of the chase. And he actually turned and came sprinting back to come and help the lionesses and actually chase the hyenas away. And the lionesses were able to finish their meal in peace. So in a way, having a big male to protect them works out in the end, even if he does sometimes take the lion's share of the meal. So it's useful having these big guys around. I believe these are the Matimba males. In terms of identifying lions, if we can have a look maybe closer at the whisker spots. In the research facility that I've worked at in the past, we used to make ID kits for lions, and what we actually looked at was the spots of the whiskers. You see those dark spots around where his whiskers are coming out? Right, those will not change throughout a lion's life. He might get scars. Sometimes you get a nice big nick in the ear that you can use to identify them, but often scars and something like that will heal away. It can't always be the most reliable way of IDing which lion you're looking at. Okay, and sometimes getting to know the identity of the animal is very important in terms of management decisions, especially on smaller reserves where they have to keep the genetic stock fresh. It's important to know which lions are mating with which lions so that you can have a little bit of extra control around that. Here we go. Okay. Foot in the air. Very happy lion. All right, guys. I don't think these two boys are going to be doing anything for a while. I think that they are going to be flat cat until it gets a little bit cooler. So I think what we'll do now is we'll make our way out of the block and we'll have a look for something else interesting and new to look at and learn about, and then potentially come back a little bit later when things are a bit cooler and they might start being a bit more active. Okay, so let's make our way out. Sort of between two roads at the moment, so I've got to choose my way out carefully. Cheers, boys. let you guys know, I do have Brent in the back with me. He's just helping me out, learning a little bit of the roads.
Hi, everyone.
Brent says hi. Hopefully, if Wendy is up and running in a later stage, we'll be able to get James out and about as well this afternoon. Yeah, did see his shadow on the back of the car. Guys, in front of us we have a herd of Impala just in the bushes over there in the direction that I'm heading, so I'll probably stick around. Potentially this is actually the same herd that we saw this morning, and one of the female lionesses actually went to start hunting them, but unfortunately the cubs made it very, very difficult because they kept following her and calling, begging for milk. And in the end, they gave the game away, and the hunt was unsuccessful. There you can see them to my left. Big herd off to the left. Careful, guys. Just choose the easiest way out of this path. Once I'm back on the road, then I'll give you guys a little bit of an introduction as to who I am and what my background is. I know especially for the regular viewers, you know the presenters, the current presenters very well. So I'll give you a bit more of a general introduction to who I am and my experience in the bush. Another game drive viewer coming along, probably to have a look at the lions, possibly. All right, what a nice group of buffalo males over there. If you can just pan to my right. There we go. Big group of buffalo boys. very typical to find the buffalo like this, safely ensconced, nice and cool in the river. You can see a lot of them are caked in mud, and that's very usual for buffalo and other animals such as rhino and so on. What they'll do is the animal will go and lie in a nice mud wallow, have a good roll around, and it acts as a fantastic cooling mechanism, but it also traps all of those pesky ticks on the bodies and helps them rub it off. So they'll cake the mud on and then go and find a nice scratching post and rub it off. And when you're walking through the bush or traveling through the bush, you can actually see on freshly rubbed rubbing posts, such as low stumps or something like that, very often in fresh mud you'll find ticks trapped there that have been scraped off. So a very good, nice way of relieving yourself from one of those itches. For those of you who missed the morning drive, I was recounting a story an experience of mine that is probably my most exciting buffalo experience to date. I was traveling around the reserve and I happened to bump into a herd of buffalo at the waterhole, and I noticed that one female in the back was acting quite strangely, and as it turns out, she was giving birth. Now, typically when the female buffalo give birth, they find a nice thick patch of bush to go and hide in, and they have their baby on their own. And this was actually the first time I saw the reason behind that. I happened to see her water break, and I could see she was struggling, lying down, straining a little bit, and another young female went up to investigate. And to this day, I don't know exactly what happened. I understand it's some kind of pregnancy hysteria. It's connected to the hormones that they smell during the birthing process. But what actually happened is that the female started headbutting and putting her horns in the stomach of the pregnant female that's going into labor, pushing her to her feet and actually chasing her around. And the big bull that was with him, I don't know necessarily that he was trying to help, but he was trying to get in the middle, see what was happening. And before I knew it, I actually had an entire herd of slightly hysterical buffalo chasing this poor female round and round. I had to tap the side of the car just to remind them that I was there, because they were so distracted and so overexcited by this female's experience. You'd be happy to know that I did go back the next day. The calf and the female were absolutely fine. She stayed separate from the herd for a while, maybe a little bit traumatized by her experience, but she was safely reared, that calf. So just a very interesting animal behavior, something that I've never seen and I've certainly never read about. One of the wonderful things in this job is that you never know what you're going to see. Okay, good boys. All right. Moving off into the dam. Okay. All right, everybody. Not enough buffalo. Let's go see what else we can find. There is another safari vehicle just ahead of me, so we might stop and say hello and just let them know that the lions are still there. It's nice for us as well. It means that somebody else will have eyes on them, so if they get up and move, we might be able to find them later. Just moving the car out of low range. Had it in low range just to keep the revs down when I was with the lions. Hello. Good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, still Lalapanzi there. Yeah, you can follow my tracks in.
Okay.
You'll find them. Chop.
The radio, but
Have a good afternoon. Okay. Enjoy. Oh, I think so. They were a flat cat. Enjoy. Okay. Just keeping up good relations with the neighbors. We're all working together for the same thing, looking after the animals and giving some people some fantastic experiences on this reserve. Okay, let's head on. Cheers, boys. Buffalo. Have a good afternoon. Nigel on Twitter, thank you for your question. Welcome to the Sunset Drive. So Nigel would like to know how far these bulls are from the lions. The answer is not far at all. Probably maybe 500 meters, probably a little bit less. Not sure exactly, about less than half a mile from the lions. Okay, so there's a chance that they might bump into them. Whether or not the lions will go for the opportunity to hunt, possibly if the buffalo approach and don't catch wind of the lions, if the lions are sitting downwind of them, and there's a possibility that the lions might give it a go. So I'm sure we'll hear updates from the vehicle that's with the lions at the moment. So just to give you guys a little bit of general background on who I am and who's driving you around this afternoon. As I said before, my name is Jamie and I was born in Johannesburg and grew up visiting the bush whenever I possibly could on family holidays. And my grandfather actually used to be a game warden for a living. So he was sort of my family idol. The rest of my family love the bush, but it's more of a holiday for them. But for us, it's our life and our passion. So in case you're picking up a little bit of an accent, I am South African, I promise you. But I did spend 3 years in the UK. I was studying law at Cambridge. You can see that endeavor worked out really well in terms of my legal career, because here I am, working back in the place that I love. Very fortunate to have had that opportunity, but the UK just wasn't the place for me, wasn't right for me. So I'm back in the bush. I returned to South Africa in 2012. Spent a brief time working on a reserve before I went to the UK. And then after that, I moved back here, did my guides training course, and I've been working at a research facility since then. It's a fantastic opportunity to really spend some time with the animals. You know, we've been through 12-week periods with just sitting with the lions morning and afternoon, same lions, and you learn an incredible amount, which is an opportunity that I've been really grateful to have, and I feel that I've learned a lot from. Okay, going through a bit of a dip now. Toronto, hi and welcome to the Sunset Drive. Lynn wants to know what areas that I've worked in South Africa in the past and what has been my most frightening experience so far. Lynn, I worked initially in an area that is the Green Kalahari. It's known as the Green Kalahari. It's around the Koranenberg Mountains, so it's still in South Africa, but the southern section of the Kalahari. And then for the last 3 or so years, I've been living not that far from here actually as the crow flies, just outside of Hoedspruit. So the Lowveld area, very similar setup, very similar vegetation, but obviously with its own unique differences. Then in terms of my most frightening experience so far, it's a difficult question, I think, for me. I think probably the closest I've ever come to having a serious situation was I had a elephant bull in must, which, for people who aren't so sure, must is actually a time in an elephant's life when they have very high testosterone levels, and they tend to be not necessarily more aggressive, but they certainly want to show a little bit more of their dominance. And he moved very purposefully towards the car. I don't think in any way was a serious charge. He was just showing me who was boss. And often people refer to mock charges. It's not a mock charge. He wasn't showing me warning signs. He was just letting me know that he was bigger. But unfortunately, I had a young student on the back. She didn't understand, and I was actually talking to somebody else at the time. Didn't realize she wasn't on my vehicle. She was in the vehicle behind. And she tried to jump out of the car and run away. So I think that was probably, luckily, the person sitting next to her managed to grab her, and as soon as I saw what was going on, I could talk her down. But I think that's probably at least the closest I've ever come to having a serious incident with some of my guests. Definitely something that everybody learned from, including myself, and fortunately no harm done. Other than that, I've had a couple of interesting charges, warning signs from quite a few animals, but these things are not necessarily so much scary as a really important learning curve. You just get to know a little bit more about yourself and about animal behavior. Hey, the vehicle with guests coming. Just move up for him a little bit. Hello. How's it going?
Going good.
Good?
Yeah. You're having fun.
I am having a wonderful time.
What is there? Do you see anything?
Yeah, the lions are still...
We're just between them.
Yeah.
With the babies? Further down.
Yes, with the little ones. They were still Lalapanzi there when we left, so hopefully they're still hanging around for you guys.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Is that a Bible of animals?
It is indeed.
That's a Bible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, shop. Have a good afternoon. Always a great experience meeting new people. It's always fantastic fun because no matter how different and vast the personalities are that you meet, you always find that when you're guiding and you're meeting other guides, you have that common connection, and it's based around the love of the bush, and you always have something to chat about and get on well with them. We have a zebi up to my left. He'll make his way around. A zebra. All right, so the zebra that we've just see disappearing into the back there, that to me, throughout my entire childhood, I always knew as a Burchell zebra. The official name now is the plain zebra. All right, there's a lot of standardization going on because with animals, there's always a lot of different common names throughout the world. Yeah, he's disappearing off into the bush. So this is the more common species of zebra. They've tried to standardize the name, so it's become the plain zebra. And yes, he's completely vanished, but quite clearly identifiable if you're looking at them. All right, the stripes extend all the way down the legs as opposed to the other species in South Africa, the mountain zebra, the Cape mountain zebra, which is a lot more endangered. Stripes extend all the way down, and they also have what are known as shadow stripes in between the black stripes, especially very visible on the rump, just slightly paler brown stripes in between on the white. Ooh, this is a popular route today. it?
Yeah.
Good, thanks.
I'm Jason.
How's it? Jamie. Nice to meet you. Okay. Yes. Bye, have a good afternoon. Hopefully making some new friends. Just bear with me a second, guys. I've got some nice tracks here. Okay, let me see if I can maybe get into a position that you guys can see them. That's going to put my shadow in the way.
You're gonna have to give me quite a bit of space.
Okay.
Your tracks.
And he's just giving me some pointers as to how to give him a little bit more space, so maybe you guys can get a look at these tracks.
Are you ready?
All right, so what we're actually looking at, let me just hop out of the vehicle and I'll give you guys a little bit of a demonstration. Okay, so over here, what we've actually got are the lion's tracks from this morning. And they were moving towards the dam and then moving off again. And I know that these are the lions that we've just seen because over here, we've got tiny, tiny little tracks. Right, I'm not sure how well you can see, but I've circled the little footprint. Tiny little cub tracks moving down. And then over here, we've got the adult lions also walking down this road. All right, when you've got tiny little cub tracks like this, if it was on its own, maybe a slightly different shape, then we're looking at something like a female leopard, right? You do get female leopards, adult female leopards that are very small, and they leave tracks roughly the same size, maybe a little bit bigger. But if you see it on its own, then it's not going to be a lion cub, all right? They don't travel alone. They don't move long distances on their own. It's next to a nice adult lion track like this, then we know what it is, and we know that it's a lion cub. All right, I have a question for some of the regular viewers. Guys, I would like you to please tell me two of the main differences between a big cat track and something like a hyena or a wild dog. Just like to know some of the differences. We've been lucky enough now that maybe the lights a little bit, the sun's gone a little bit lower, so we've got some nice shadows. And tracking's always an interesting experience. You can learn a great deal from it. So I could tell you potentially, if you spend a lot of time tracking, I know that these tracks are not super fresh. All right, that's because I'm looking at the edges. They've been slightly blurred. This is a main road, so they will have been covered with dust. It also helps that I know when the lions were seen this morning. But when you're looking at tracks and you're not quite sure, what I often found useful in the beginning...
Just a bit louder.
Yeah. What I found useful in the beginning was to actually step next to the track and see what my footprint looks like in the substrate, because I know exactly when I stood there, so I can see how clear the lines are, and then you can compare it to the line track and have a look, all right? Nice soft sand like this leaves very clear lines, so I know that these tracks are not super, super fresh. Okay, I'm gonna hop in the vehicle. I love tracking because it actually tells you a story. Even if you're not necessarily seeing the animal, you're leaving the evidence behind and you're having a look at what else there is to see. And most important thing about tracking, don't just look at the one track. you're looking at everything around it, because often the evidence is around. With something like a porcupine, you might see the track and be a bit stumped, but nothing else leaves thin lines where the quills have actually dragged along behind it. So a wonderful way of the bush actually telling you a story about what's happened there. Okay, let's move on. We know which way these lines have gone, and we're going to head off, explore new territory. Traveling to new areas of reserves. It's always a fantastic experience for me as well, just to see the differences, the small differences in the vegetation, the bird life, the mammal life. Everything has its own subtle differences. And there's a special smell at this time of year in the bush. It's dry and dusty, but in a kind of fresh, clean way, if I could describe it that way. One of my favorite smells. And summer brings a whole different range this time of evening. You get this fresh summer smells of the flowers, the rain, the smell of the wet dirt. Totally different experience. We have some answers now about the question that I asked you guys about how you tell the difference between the big cat pads, the leopards and the lions, versus something like hyenas and dogs. So Tom in Virginia, absolutely right. You will see the claws on something like hyena, especially when it's in nice soft sand. The other big crucial difference is the back pad. All right, in cats such as lions, leopards, cheetah, you've got 3 lobes at the back of the pad. I'm just going to look for a picture while I talk to you guys. Whereas with something like hyena and wild dog, you've actually only got 2 lobes. Let me just get my mammal book. All right, be careful with claws, because there are situations where you will be able to see a lion's claws, especially when they're soft mud, or when they're taking off for a run or a pounce. Sometimes you get that little extra bit because the claws never retract fully into the sheath. So if it's really soft, deep mud, you might pick up the claw marks. Okay. So just roughly to give you an idea, here we have a track of a hyena. If you look over here, these are the 2 lobes that show through on the track. The same way this big lobe and this lobe here on the side will show on the track. So you'll only really get the imprint of 2. Whereas if we compare that to a lion, this picture's not fantastic. The leopard's a little bit better. Have a look at the lobes here at the back. So when we're talking about the lobes of the pad, the back of the pad, I'm talking about that section here, not the toes. All right. Another point about claws. Cheetah, the claws will show in the track, all right? Cheetah have non-retractable claws. And the reason for that is it actually provides them with a little bit of extra traction. Now, interestingly, with most animals, you'll find that the front foot is much bigger and rounder than the back foot. That's because most animals carry most of their weight on the front of their bodies, or a higher percentage of the weight in the front of their bodies. Strong jaws or trunks, something like an elephant, big round foot, slightly smaller, slightly oblong-shaped back foot. But with cheetah, the opposite is true. And you'll actually see that their back feet are slightly bigger than their front feet, just for that little bit of extra traction. Very interesting to compare the different ways that nature has selected for the way that the animal functions and hunts or finds its food. Okay, let's move on, see what else we can find. A lot of you guys were regular followers of the camera at the Djuma waterhole, and there were reports last night of sounds that potentially sounded like a kill, with hyenas rushing around, potential moaning sounds, and some lions, potentially lions feeding or eating. And I know that Joyce in Pennsylvania now is asking about that. Well, welcome, Joyce. As far as I know, I can tell you that Scotty was out this morning having a look around that area. I don't think he picked up anything around there. I do know that he then went on to find the pride of lions that we've just left. So I don't think that they had a kill around there. They probably wouldn't have left as soon as they did. But we have followed up on it, and as far as I know, there was nothing around that area. Okay guys, as you can see over there on my right, got a tiny little steenbokkie, steenbuck, and they're actually one of my favorite antelope. I always enjoy them. Wonderful little jumpers, nice secretive little antelope. Very common to see them on their own, although they do mate for life and they do live in breeding pairs. But when they move about their little territories, they move about and forage and feed on their own. You will occasionally see them next to each other, but we've just got the male here at the moment that I can see, standing nice and still for us. One of my favorite things about steenbok is actually the white patch that's under their tail. Now, a lot of you will know already that a lot of antelope have a very fluffy white underside of their tail, and it works quite well when they're running away from predators. It helps them keep an eye on where the other antelope are. But it also serves a different function that I've noticed, and it's what's known as flash coloration. It's just moving a little bit away from us. I'm going to disappear behind that tree. So if I could sort of explain flash coloration to you. Imagine that you're a predator and you see in black and white. One of the most obvious colors that you see in the bush is white. It shows up very distinctively. So when you see that flash of white, which you will, when a steenbok is alarmed, it's going to lift its tail and it's going to spring away from you. What they actually do is they'll jump a little bit with their tail up, with the white showing, and then they'll stop and they drop their tail. And all of a sudden, your eyes are focused, and it's happened to me before in the bush. Your eyes are focused where you saw that flash of white, but the steenbok has dropped its tail and is a couple of meters away from where you thought it was. Really good way of just buying themselves a little bit of crucial extra time to escape from a predator. Valerie, welcome to the Sunset Drive, and thank you for your question. Valerie would like to know how I personally heard about WildEarth and whether or not I've ever worked with any of the current presenters before. Valerie, I've known about Africam, which was sort of a long-running project that preceded WildEarth, and I used to entertain myself during the long evenings in the UK when I missed the bush. I used to sit with the webcam up and running just to get the sounds of the bush into my room in the cold, dark UK when I was there. So it sort of extended from there. When WildEarth started, then I started following their Facebook page and their wildlife cameras. It's something that I really enjoy, and I really appreciate this project because there's something so special, and for me one of the best things about the bush is to actually be able to share it with people. And this is a way. Oh, we've got another steenbok here on our right. Hello, little one. Little female this time. Here we go. You can see how steenbok will often rely on their camouflage, stay nice and still until they think that the threat has passed them. Something we also see with leopards. There he goes, there she goes, bouncing away. And can we still see her? Is she gone?
A little bit.
A little bit. Alright, now that we've seen both the male and the female steenbok, you can actually see clearly sexual dimorphism. The male has horns, the female doesn't. Okay, and that's true of some antelope species, but not all of them. So, something like a wildebeest. A wildebeest, both the male and the female have horns. And there's a very clear correlation between the type of habitat that the antelope lives in and whether or not the female will actually have horns. So for an animal that relies on hiding itself and living in thick or dense vegetation, something like a kudu, a nyala, bushbuck, or steenbokkies that hide away, you'll find that the female doesn't have horns because she doesn't need them. She doesn't rely on them for defense. She uses her, there she goes running off. She uses them as a way of relying on her camouflage and to hide away from predators rather than standing and fighting. But with animals that live in big herd situations or out in the open, the females will have horns because in that case they need them to defend themselves and they need them to defend their youngsters because they can't rely on vegetation in the same way. So there is quite a very strong link between the habitat and whether or not the females have horns. The reason that the males will always have horns is because it's a way of, this fly is going to drive me insane. It's a way of competing for females. So they still need it as part of proving that they're the bigger, stronger male, but they don't necessarily, the females won't necessarily have horns. Okay, just to come back to the question I was answering earlier, in terms of if I've worked with any of the presenters before, I haven't. Some of the names are very familiar to me, and I've seen them on camera, but this is the first time that I've met them personally in a working professional environment. I'm very much enjoying the experience so far. I arrived yesterday and it's been a fantastic time. One of my better days in the bush in the last few days. You know, there's never a boring day in the bush, but it's been a wild ride, fantastic time. This fly is very persistent.
I've got one on me as well.
You also got one.
Yeah.
Keeping us on our toes. Nothing like summer though. In summer you've got flies all over the place. Okay. Beautiful view. Nigel, welcome to the Sunset Drive and thank you for your question. Nigel is comparing the different way that something like cats will drink, where they curl their tongue underneath to draw the liquid into their mouths, or something like a dog that actually laps and pulls the water into their mouth. And Nigel would like to know, how do hyenas drink? Honestly, Nigel, that's the first time I've ever been asked that question, and I actually don't know the answer, but it is something that I'm going to go home and look up. Very interesting. And maybe if you guys at home do know the answer to that question, please let me know. Feel free to tweet your answers at #SafariLive, or else send us an email at questions@wildearth.tv and let me know the answer, because I'm just as keen as Nigel to find out what they actually do. Thank you for that question, Nigel. Fantastic. Question from Udo in Germany. Welcome to our Sunset Drive. Thank you for your question as always. Now Udo wants to know, are the animals able to move from the Sabi Sands, which is the area that we're in now, which is a private concession, and into the Kruger National Park, which I'm sure most of you will know is our biggest national reserve and extends right across into Mozambique and Zimbabwe. Yes, the animals are free to roam where they want to. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for us, all right? There's certain contractual agreements. We have traversing rights over private landowners' land, and we have set boundaries that we must stay in. All right, and that makes sense. It's a landowner's decision. They can choose where to send cars, and, you know, it's very much their personal choice as to how many vehicles they have on their reserve. And in terms of protecting the bush, making sure that there's not too much damage or harassment of the animals, not necessarily harassment, but just, you know, people in their space, and it's nice to maybe just keep the numbers down. So, unfortunately, we have restrictions, but we've got plenty of beautiful land to drive around in and lots of animals to see. A very exciting venture for me to experience this, because the current reserve that I'm living and working at is a wonderful reserve, but it is fenced in, and we know the animals, which has its own advantages and disadvantages. We research them, but it has a whole different level of excitement driving around here and knowing that these animals are traversing enormous areas if they want to and are able to. And you might see a different herd of elephants to the one that you saw yesterday. very, very exciting experience for me. Wisconsin. Hi and welcome to the Sunset Drive. Gilly would like to know if I could give you guys a sort of size comparison for the Steenbok by relating them to a breed of dog that you might know. Gilly, good question. I'd probably put them at maybe, let's go with Staffordshire Terrier, American Staffordshire Terrier, something along those lines, but much less bulky. All right, it's roughly the same height, maybe a little bit shorter, much less bulky, but around that sort of size. And then Gilly would also like to know if we get what I think is Chinook or Chinook antelope in South Africa. I believe the ones the very long neck or around Sabi Sands. The answer is no, that we don't. They tend to be much further north of our area. We don't get them in South Africa at all. Very good question. Thank you, Gilly. Elephants have been leaving us presents. Big branches in the road. That we were asked about the way that hyenas drink. Debbie and Pamela have got back to us, specifying that dogs will actually curl their tongues backwards and under when they drink, and that hyena will probably drink in much the same manner, which sounds to me to be a fairly realistic answer. That makes the most sense to me. So thank you for that, guys. Much appreciated. Learning something new every day. Have a question from Pamela on Twitter, and Pamela would like to know what species of wildebeest we have on the Sabi Sands. The answer, Pamela, is the blue wildebeest, which is the most common one that we have in South Africa. We also get the black wildebeest, but that is concentrated more towards the central area of the country, the open grasslands, more around a part of the country that is known as the Free State. Pamela's also asked us whether we have any mosquitoes at this time of year. The answer is no. I haven't seen a mosquito in a couple of months. It has been a very, very dry season for us, both on the reserve I'm currently living at and on this reserve. And as you know, mosquitoes will breed in water. Their larvae will be in particularly pools of stagnant water, and they like the nice, warm, moist weather. All right, this time of year, it's a little bit cold. We're not seeing any mosquitoes. Guys, apologies for the quick screen cleaning. Andrew's just going to sort us out a little bit. Alright, it's the time of year when there's a big season change. Makes things a little bit more complicated. Lots of dust flying around, a bit of condensation. So Andrew's just going to sort that out for us so that we have a nice clear screen. Thank you. Nice little treat for us there in the road. We've got a tree squirrel just foraging around, looking for some grass seeds, something like that, before the sun goes down, and he runs back into his tree and hides away for the night. You won't see it so much at this time of year, but in particular when there's a type of tree in the bush in the low veld known as the marula tree, which produces the most amazing sweet tasting fruit. And you'll often find that when elephants, they love this fruit, and when they chew it, they don't always bother to chew all that well, and they swallow whole, and it passes straight through into the dung. And what you'll often find is tree squirrels coming along quickly to find the marula seeds left in the dung, and they scavenge that little bit. They pop open the kernels. Their teeth are specially adapted for this purpose, and they get all of the nutritious content inside that marula seed. Very clever little animals, very adaptable. Go. Nice and brave now that we're sitting still. Yeah, you can just see him over the top of my vehicle there. Interesting example of animal behavior that applies across the board, whether you're talking about elephants or lions or something like a tree squirrel. Always let them approach you, because they're much more likely to get nice and close if you let them make that decision for themselves. Okay, it's just polite, and it just makes them feel safer, and you're going to have a better sighting. If I was to drive and approach the squirrel as close as he is now, deliberately, there's no way he would stick around. He'd be running away. So always important, nice little demonstration, and it applies, as I said, across the board, whether we're talking about ellies or anything like that. Here he goes, on his way. Making his way towards this old leadwood. Oh, up we go. Wonderful to watch their agility. Can't quite decide where he's going to go. Okay. He's going to start making his way to bed. It'll get dark and cool. Winter's always a wonderful time of year to be in the bush. I mean, it's pretty cold, especially in the early mornings and then the late evenings. but you do get to see a lot of very interesting things that you might not necessarily pick up on in summer. So your nocturnal animals are starting to come out much earlier because it's cooler. So things like aardvark, brown hyena, all of those kind of things, shy and secretive, but they come out a little bit earlier in winter. Some buffaloes, just all chilling out here, making the most of the last of the afternoon. There we go. We have a question from Gerda. Good afternoon, welcome to the Sunset Drive. Gerda would like to know how far spotted hyenas will move when they're moving from one den site to the next. Gerda, that's in my experience, they actually do not go too far, but that doesn't mean that they can't. Again, you can't ever apply a blanket rule to anything in nature, but typically what I've experienced, I've kept an eye on quite a few active hyena den sites. When they do move, the ones that I've been observing have never moved more than maybe 2 kilometers from the den site. They've also got a lot of pre-chosen sites that they will repeatedly use throughout their breeding season. So they'll go from one den site to the next, and they have it prepped and ready. They know exactly where they're going to go. Let me go. Grey heron flying off. Beautiful shot into the sun. And away he goes. Very, very nice. It's nothing like the light on a late afternoon in winter. It's always spectacular. Anyway, sorry, back to Gerda's question about the spotted hyena dens. They will move, and they will move regularly, especially just when the fleas start to build up, and they will drag carcasses back to the den, so the smell collects and the parasites do tend to accumulate. So they will move their cubs fairly regularly. And what I have noticed is for the past 2 years, where I've been living, watching one clan of hyenas, the matriarch of the clan, she's had 2 litters in the time that I've been there. She's actually followed a very similar path, used exactly the same den sites, almost in exactly the same order. Very interesting. I'm sure that's not a blanket rule. It's just the way that it's worked out. I'm very sorry for that. Just went through a bit of a dip and we lost signal temporarily. But it seems to be back up and running. So I hope you guys weren't too stressed. Once again, we apologize for the loss of the signal. Alright guys, I'm just going to make my way back towards the lions. Let's see if we can get a nice view of them just before the sun goes down a bit too much and it gets too dark. Just while we're making our way back towards the lions, I have a very interesting question from Alex. And Alex would like to know, whoops, went a bit too fast down there. Alex would like to know what the difference is between the hunting strategies and the groupings of spotted hyenas versus wild dogs. Very good question. Alex, the spotted hyena social system is actually quite fascinating. It's one of the only truly matriarchal animal groupings in the animal kingdom, because the females are that much bigger and that much larger than the male. So what you find, they have a very strict hierarchy with the highest ranking matriarch up at the top, and then all of her daughters, and the lowest ranking daughter, the lowest ranking female is still higher ranking than the highest ranking male. And when we're talking about comparing wild dogs and spotted hyenas in terms of hunting strategies, both are incredibly effective hunters, arguably much more effective than something like a lion. What they will do is they utilize quite similar techniques. They can very often do hunt for hyenas in big groups. Wild dogs will always hunt in groups, and they will chase down the prey. And when the one chaser gets tired, the next one will come in until eventually the prey animal is just too exhausted to run anymore, and then they will then kill the animal. So quite a similar approach for both animals. Again, spotted hyenas can hunt alone as well, so no blanket rule. Then in terms of the social structure of the wild dogs, what you will find is that there is an alpha pair in a pack, but you'll get a pack of all sexes, but the alpha pair will be the ones that breed, and the rest of the pack will be there to help them and look after those pups. So slightly different approaches, actually very different animals, but very interesting to compare. Susan from Long Island, New York. She wants to know if hyenas will actually feed on other dead hyenas. The answer is yes, they can, and they will. They will have a look. It's not that common in the natural environment to find cannibalism in species, but it does happen with hyenas. And I found an active den site of a hyena and a fresh hyena skull. I've also seen pictures on camera traps, so motion sensors that trip and take a picture. We've set up camera traps throughout our reserve, and we've actually got a fantastic picture, a bit grisly, but a picture of a spotted hyena carrying another spotted hyena's head in its mouth. So it does happen. So yes, in answer to your question, they will eat dead hyenas. in Dayton Children's Hospital in Ohio. And Gracie would like to know if we get any bears in Southern Africa. The answer, Gracie, is no, we don't. But I wish that we did, because I would love nothing more than to see a bear in the wild. Maybe one day I'll have an opportunity to travel to America and have a look at something like a bear. But in South Africa, the place in the ecosystem, in nature, that the bear fills, we've got other animals that fill the same place in South Africa. So no to the bears, but still would love to see one day. Relocate those lions before it gets too dark. Looking for these lions. PK would like to know why I refer to hyena babies as cubs and to wild dog babies as pups. Alright, the reason for that, there is a reason for this, and that is because although hyenas are a completely separate and distinct family, so they're not dogs and they're not cats, if you go back far enough in their evolutionary line, you will actually find that they are slightly more closely related to cats than they are to dogs, strangely enough. Even though a lot of people sometimes think maybe they look a little bit more dog-like, they're actually closer related to cats. So when I refer to the baby hyenas, I'm referring to the cubs. And with wild dogs, they are typical canines, part of the canine family, so their babies are pups. Thank you for that question. Welcome to the Sunset Drive. So Jenny wants to know if I've seen any albino animals in the wild and if I have ever seen a black panther. The answer to the albino question is I've actually not seen any in the wild. Albinism, especially in South Africa, is quite rare. The white lions that you guys might have seen on TV or something like that, that's actually not true albinism in its truest form. It's a slightly paler coloration, right? A true albino animal will have red eyes, whereas the white lions, they actually have blue eyes. So I haven't seen any albinism in the wild. The reason for that is there's quite a lot of competition, and a pale white animal stands out really, really clearly in the bush. So you don't often see them surviving that well. I'm sure it will happen to me one day that I see an albino something. I have seen a deliberately bred albino antelope, but that was human interference, so artificial selection. In terms of black panthers, well, if we're talking about melanistic leopards, that does happen, where you find them, they're much darker than normal, almost completely black. I've never seen one. I have caught one once on a camera trap, so I've never seen him again before or since. I think he just passed by my camera trap motion detector and tripped the signal. I've also heard reports of one in a town that is fairly close to here, probably about 2 hours drive, and that melanistic leopard is seen fairly regularly. But very, very unusual to see and super exciting if you did see one. Another question from Angela in Boston. Hi Angela, and thank you very much. Angela would like to know how many types of wildcats I've seen in the wild. Angela, I'm not entirely sure if you're referring to different species of predatory cats. If in answer to your question, if that is your question, I would say I've seen lions, leopards, cheetah, serval, caracal, wildcats. I think that might be it. I've never been fortunate enough to see the very endangered small spotted cat. Maybe one day. In terms of the African wildcat, I've had a couple of very, very nice sightings. This is a threat. This is a species that is very much under threat, just because, especially because of hybridization with domestic cats. Okay, it is the ancestor of the domestic cat, so it can still breed with domestic cats. And what we've seen is that with a lot of feral cats, with the increase of human population, they've actually started breeding and hybridizing with domestic cats. And we're not seeing the true African wildcat as often as we should be. throttle into low range. This gives me a little bit more control as we go off-road here. And makes a little bit less noise. You don't startle the lions too much. Sticky. There we go. Where they might have moved. Starting to get a bit cooler, they might be on their way. To where they were.
Check the handbrake.
Thank you. That's an interesting development, and something that I smelt before I saw them. Our buffalo bulls have moved in. Okay, let's see if we can get around them. Just to describe the smell to you guys, buffalo, they smell a lot like cows, a lot like a farmyard. And I actually smelt them a little bit before I saw them. This is very close to where the lions were, so there's a good chance that they might have moved away. Especially with young cubs, and with such a big group of big males, they might not have stuck around. I'm just gonna try and get around, see if I can figure out where these lions have gone. the exciting things of coming through the bush. You never know what you're going to find or who you're going to find where you thought you were going to find something else. I've got a quick question from Pamela. Pamela would like to know how many languages I speak and if you need a license to drive a safari vehicle. Pamela, I speak 2 languages fluently, English and Afrikaans, which you'll find is typical of most South Africans. I do know a little bit of Zulu, a little bit of Sotho, and maybe a couple of words of Shangaan, but that's stuff that's picked up mainly through guiding. And then in terms of license to drive a safari vehicle, on private land, if you were on your own, theoretically you wouldn't, but professionally, yes, you do. Find a way around this buffalo. A couple of fallen knob thorns. Okay, what I think I might do, guys, just because it's proving a little bit more difficult to get around the buffalo, is to move out of the block and then move around to the other road and see if maybe I can pick something up from there. Maybe we get lucky and the lions have popped out there. I'm not sure if you guys can hear them. Probably not over the crashing and the sound of the vehicle. You can actually hear a lot of ox pickers flying in the sky. Very useful warning calls for when you're in the bush. Okay, they typically sit on the big animals or Impala, but you'll often find big groups of them sitting on something like a buffalo herd, for example. So when you hear them, there's a good chance that you should be keeping a nice eye open for something along the lines of buffalo, or even a giraffe. And these birds are actually incredible. They'll sit on the animal, and they can eat in the region of 1,000 ticks a day, which is seriously impressive for a little bird that size. But what you find is because they're ingesting so much blood and salt in their diet through the ticks, they need a lot of water. So they will often fly from an animal to the water. our way out of this block and see if we can get around.
Can you just stop for 1 second? Something fell off.
Okay.
Tree whacked Brent off.
Just gonna do a quick stop. We nearly lost Brent to a tree. It's okay. He's back. To know that with the cubs being as young as they are, would there be restrictions as to vehicles in terms of numbers of vehicles coming to look at them, if that would be a further restriction? Lenny, I'm not totally familiar with the reserve rules, but I do know that this reserve is famed for some really ethical guiding, and I'm sure that the guides here will make sure, especially in a thick block like this, whoever's in charge of the sighting of the lions will make a judgment call and say, actually guys, only space for 2 vehicles, you stand by and then I'll give you a turn to come in. Alright, at the moment, as far as I know, there's nobody else here but us, but these lions will definitely have moved off with those buffalo coming through. From Angela in Boston. And Angela wants to know why the lions would have moved off away from the buffalo, and surely they would have tried to hunt them. Angela wants to know if lions are opportunistic hunters in the same way that leopards are. Just get this car out of low range. Angela, lions are opportunistic. They will be. There is a very good chance, though, that they wouldn't have gone straight into hunting mode with the cubs so small and so close to where the buffalo are now. And they probably would have deemed it safer to just move off, especially if the buffalo approached and got wind of the lions. Because if I smelled the buffalo from the direction I was approaching, there's a very good chance that the buffalo actually smelled the lions first before they approach. So they were already aware and alert to their presence, and that actually makes them quite a serious threat to the cubs. Alright, buffalo have been known, there are recorded cases of buffalo killing lion cubs, so there was always the potential for that. And for that reason, I think, especially with it being quite a small pride, only 2 females with 3 very, very small cubs, probably a risk they were not willing to take. The situation would have been very different if they hadn't had 3 tiny cubs with them. They've got the 2 big males, so there's a good chance they would have gone for the hunting opportunity. Going to keep a nice eye out for these guys. Also checking the road for tracks. Maybe we can pick up if they cross somewhere. Pamela. Pamela would like to know if anybody's found dinosaur fossils in Sabi Sands. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I don't think so. There aren't any dig sites here as far as I know. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I don't think so. There aren't any dig sites here as far as I know. There are certain dinosaurs that have been found in South Africa, but I'm pretty sure not so much from the Sabi Sands area. Guys, I'm just gonna stop for a second, just get my jacket on. It's a little bit chilly. And I definitely don't handle the cold all that well. So let me just get my jumper on and then we can carry on. Okay, thank you for that. Much better. Fantastic question from Gert from the Netherlands. Good afternoon, or good evening now, Gert, and welcome to the Sunset Drive, and thank you for your question. Let me just go through this dip just in case, and then I'll get to Gert's question, just in case we lose signal. Respond differently to people and to vehicles. Aha. Okay. So we picked up. There we go. All right, guys. Sorry, Gert, your question will have to wait because we've just found the lines again. Let's just get the ground. Peek around this corner. one of the Matimba males walking nice and sedate. Just going to shift my car into low range so that I can idle behind him, nice and quietly, follow him without disturbing him. Actually got the two boys ahead of us in the road, and from what I could see from the tracks that we were picking up, the whole pride has gone a little bit ahead of these guys. Very common when you see lions walking that you get the pride going ahead and the males traveling leisurely behind at their own pace. Very important to remember that animals like to use roads just like we do. It's a nice quiet way of getting from point A to point B. And there's less bushes to go around, less grass to worry about, nice easy path. Marking going on there, some territorial scraping, and you can actually, I'm not sure if you guys can pick it up, but he's spraying urine backwards. So what he's doing is he's marking his territory, he's letting everybody know that this is his area, and by kicking like that and scuffing like that, he actually gets the scent of the urine into the pads of his feet, and then he walks with it and takes the scent along with him. Down the road. Very nice to see this sort of behavior. And if we're really, really lucky, maybe we might hear them call. We have to be very lucky. Let's make its way off the road here to my right. He's going to slip, grabbing his head along there. And there we go. Perfect demonstration. Urine spray, territorial marking. And in the distance, there's the other male. On the other side of this turn. Boy. There we go. And if we're lucky, what we might see as these two boys approach each other.
Just watch your head. Just watching your head first. There we go.
Just move my head out of the way so you guys can see him. Spectacular male lions in the evening light. Really beautiful. Okay, head rub. Very typical when you see one lion lying down and another one approaching. They'll come and give that head rub. It's a social greeting. Just reaffirming that bond that they have. It's got a, I think he's got a little bit of a limp. Favouring one leg just ever so slightly. Have a quick drink. The male moo.
Can you go a bit forward? It's slow.
Spectacular in the evening light. Big drink after a hot day. And all that lying. It's thirsty work, spending the afternoon lying down. Okay, you guys can actually see quite clearly that this male is walking with a limp. Now, I have heard that the one male lion has had a limp for at least a couple of months. I'm going to assume that this is still him. I'm not sure, but it seems to be. He's definitely still favouring one leg, but he hasn't lost any condition, still looking healthy. So hopefully whatever it is going to slowly heal up and he can get back to normal. But he seems to be healthy otherwise, just a bit of a limp. Really spectacular colours this evening. Sometimes in an evening like this, it's nice to just sit and really appreciate what you're looking at and just sit and listen to the sounds of the bush, all of the surface sound, and then underneath that nice deep silence that I love so much about these places. Nice patch to lie down in. Might have found a scent that he likes. You often find with lions they'll go up, if they find a nice strong smell, they rub their heads in it, they often lie and roll in it. So he might be doing something like that.
I wonder if you can shine some light on him.
Okay, I'm just gonna get hold of our spotlight, see if we can light these guys up nicely.
Just plug that on there.
There we go. In terms of spotlight etiquette, it's always a little bit rude to shine the light directly into a lion's eye. So what I'm trying to do at the moment is maybe just bounce the light a little bit off the ground so that it lights him up nicely for us without shining right in his eyes. But he's turned away from us now. So Lenny in Arizona would like to know if when the lions moved away from the buffalo, if the aunt would have helped to carry the cubs away, and if it would only ever be the mother who picks up the cubs. She might have done. I have seen lionesses who are not the mothers of the cubs. I have seen them pick up and carry cubs, but chances are that they probably didn't carry the cubs away. They probably just moved fairly rapidly. The cubs are tiny, but they could move away pretty quickly. They probably smelt or heard the buffalo coming. Lots of crunching, picked up on the sound of their steps coming through the grass, and decided to move away as quickly as possible. And the way that the buffalo went in, the males probably would have been there first. So the buffalo would have seen the male lions before the females and the cubs. Just picked up on an eye shine over there. Sorry, guys. I think it's a bush baby. So Joe from Wales has taught me something new this evening. He tells me that domestic kittens will always suckle from the same teat whenever they go and feed from their mothers. It was something I didn't know. But Joe was wondering if it's the same process with lion cubs. I don't think so. I wouldn't have thought so, just because there's such competition with your siblings that there's such stiff competitions with your siblings that maybe you can't really afford to be that fussy as to which teat you suckle from. You've kind of just got to take what's left for you. So I don't think so, but I don't know, Jonah. Honestly, I didn't even know that about domestic cats. So thank you for teaching me something. Just going to swing around and see if I can still see the other male.
I saw him walk just to the other side of the dam.
Okay. All right. I don't think this guy is going to move anytime soon, so I'm going to move up a little bit, see if I can find his brother, and then maybe we can drive on for a little bit, see what else we can spot. Very nice to just see that they're still around. I'm not sure where the rest of the pride's gone. They might have carried on moving, or they might have settled down with the cubs in a safer place. So we're going to carry on looking around. It's nice to see the males now, because without the cubs, we can actually spotlight on these males then. They're old enough and they've been around. They're comfortable with it. Of the other male at the moment. Might have moved into the bushes. Just going to shift the car out of low range and we can carry on looking for other nocturnal beasties.
Lights. The switches on the dash, yeah.
Ah, there we go. And we've got a female. Oh. Okay guys, we're going to go a little bit closer. Just wanted to see if you guys could pick up on the sound of that aggression. Right, the other male is fighting with the other females. And they're just having a little bit of a tiff. Okay. There we go. Okay. Sorry about the dust. Sorry, lady. hear the soft, okay, the soft contact calls of the one female, and I can, just to the right of the lion, see the young cubs coming through. Okay, so I'm going to take the spotlight a little bit away from them. Here we go, the rest of the family coming through. Nice social greeting. Oh, that female's feeling a little bit crabby tonight. She was also the one who initiated a little bit of aggression with the male. Okay. Guys, if you've just joined us, or if you've forgotten, or you're wondering why I'm not shining the spotlight on the cubs, all right, that's just an ethical consideration. They're very, very small. They're only 3 months old, and I just don't want to harass them in that manner at the moment, not when they're so young. Okay, so they're moving off nicely to the left of us, and we've still got the male nice and relaxed here. If we listen nice and hard, we can actually hear the contact, soft contact calls of the mom. That was really wonderful. Guys, I think we're going to leave this lion family be. Let them go about their business in the evening, especially with such young cubs. We're just going to move on. I know that there was a lot of concern about the male with the limp, whether it's going to affect his hunting potential and whether it's going to place him at extra risk from other competitors or predators. The answer is yes, to an extent. As I said, he hasn't lost any condition at the moment. He's looking fairly good. Hopefully the pride and the other male will be a little bit more successful in hunting, feed him up. It doesn't seem to be slowing him down too much. So there's a very good chance that he'll actually heal and recover. These animals tend to be a lot tougher than we give them credit for, and certainly a lot tougher than we are as human beings, right? There's a certain hardiness to the animals in this area. It has to be that way. All right, let's be on our way. Something back there. Nope. False alarm. So Julia from Houston tells us that this injury on this male has actually been there for 2 years. And it was a suspected snake bite. Thank you very much for that information, Julia. That's very helpful. So guys, as you can see, although it hasn't healed up very well, he is still in prime condition, still looking good. So he's obviously been well looked after and is still able to hunt. I have seen a lion before with a broken leg, and she was able to move as efficiently on those 3 legs as she was on 4. It was absolutely incredible to see how fast she could move. mega kill? Welcome to the Sunset Drive, Steve, and thank you for your question. It very much depends on the size of the lion pride, how many lions there are devouring the kill, and what kind of prey animal they've killed. If you could sort of say roughly for a pride of about 6, maybe every 2 to 3 days, but then that's not an impala, because an impala kill would not sustain them, provide them with enough meat for all of them to be sufficiently fed. So the bigger the pride, the larger the prey animals that they go for, and particularly if that pride has a couple of males with them, then they start to look for bigger prey like buffalo and giraffe, which will feed the pride a bit more efficiently. In that way, lions are actually keystone species. They can have an enormous effect on the ecosystem. If you consider the amount of food that one large pride would need to eat to provide in a year, if you have too many lions, you're going to see a huge drop in prey populations, as well as increased competition with things such as leopards, spotted hyena. All right, you'll find that the predator populations of other species of predator will also struggle. If you've got an overpopulation of lions and they don't have anywhere to move around. So very good question. Thank you very much for that, Steve. Again, there's no set rules in the bush. I've seen very full lions attempt to hunt after killing and eating a wildebeest just because they saw an opportunity. So, typical rule, maybe every 2 to 3 days. Okay, so I'll hit my lights. There's a scrub here in the road. Okay, with scrub hares wandering around, they tend to freeze, like the expression a rabbit in the headlights. You shine a light on them, they get confused and they don't know where to go. And unfortunately, a lot of them on main roads, if they get out of reserves, will actually be knocked over that way. So important to bear that in mind, give them some space and a little bit of respect. From Pennsylvania. Thank you very much for your words of encouragement. I really appreciate it. Really been helpful, and you guys have been incredibly supportive, and I really appreciate it. Brenda would like to know what my most exciting moment in the bush is to date. Well, Brenda, that's a difficult one for me to choose. I've had so many exciting ones. I think the birth of a very special baby animal in my life after quite a sad time really made a huge difference, especially because we were the first people on the reserve to see it. That was an incredibly special moment for me and gave me just a renewed boost in remembering why I love to do this job and what it is that we are protecting and conserving. So I think if I had to pick one, I would do that. But again, any moment with elephants, I've had so many and they're never boring. My first sighting of wild dogs when I was a kid, and maybe those early mornings with my granddad when I was tiny. And he used to take me out first thing in the morning to go and visit Kruger. And when it was still dark, and I still remember that childlike excitement of never knowing what you were going to see, and it was always so very appealing and exciting. So thank you for your question. welcome to what's going to the close of our sunset safari this evening. Happy Cub would like to know if I have a favorite nocturnal critter. Sure, it's a very difficult question for me to answer. I have a confession in that I've never seen an aardvark in the wild before. I don't know what it is about me. It's some people laugh and joke about it. They think it's some kind of curse. So maybe an aardvark would be pretty exciting. But I must say I have a really soft spot for pangolins. One of the most overly poached animals in the world, and very shy, very rare to see, and just so special because they're so secretive and so little is known about them. Drawing to a close on what's been a fantastic experience for me and a fantastic afternoon drive, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all of the people who've been watching and for all of the support I've received. I really, really appreciate it. You guys have been fantastic. And again, a huge thank you to the WildEarth team for the opportunity that they've given me. Had a fantastic afternoon. Started off the day with some lion cubs, really special. First time they've been seen today by the WildEarth crew. So I'm so glad I got to share in that experience and enjoy it. And this morning was equally incredible, with a fantastic leopard sighting in the morning and then the lion cubs a bit later. This is such a gift that we've been given. We live these incredible lives as guides where we get to come out and experience new places, get to meet the most incredible people. And I really have enjoyed this experience so much. The bush is never boring, but this has been a particularly spectacular appearance. It is my first time in Sabi Sands, and I've been dying to come here since I was a little girl. So at least, regardless of any outcomes, the dream has been fulfilled. I've had a fantastic time. I've seen some fantastic things, and I've really had the most amazing experience. So thank you to the awesome team at WildEarth, and thank you especially to you guys. Your support has meant a great deal, and we will see you guys tomorrow morning for the sunrise drive. So have a good evening, or if it's not evening for you guys, have a fantastic day ahead and enjoy. Thank you very much, guys.